Hi, Jeff Bridgman here in York County, Pennsylvania, owner of Jeff R. Bridgman American Antiques. I've come to you tonight to talk to you about one of my favorite things in early American folk art, paint-decorated game boards. So, game boards are collected by serious folk art collectors and lovers of art because they are both of those things. They're often very graphic and made not just to play the particular game that is featured on the board, or games, and sometimes there are multiple games, but as a wonderful object to look at. In the 19th century especially, these were often given as gifts and often handmade as gifts, so they were embellished appropriately for the occasion, right? For the person that made them wanted the person that received them to love them as something more than just to play a game on. So there were homemade boards and they were commercially made boards. Some of them were made by carriage painters, for example, and sign painters who, when they had additional time, could do this, especially for like a carriage painter, for example. It might be winter would be an appropriate time to find something else to do. Just like a landscaper, you had to have something else to do for the rest of the year before we had things like unemployment. So that you could feed your family through the winter. And one of those things for carriage painters would be to certainly make sleds and other related outdoor objects, but also toys and things to be given as gifts at Christmas time and other times. So what do people collect in antique game boards? They collect color, form, and surface, just like they do in all other types of American folk art. They like boards in particular to be made of wood. They don't particularly like other types of mediums, such as paper, for example, or reverse painted glass. That's another type of board that you'll often see. Those are kind of shunned. Metal, polychrome painted metal, you can get away with sometimes. I like to work those in. There are cork dart boards that are pretty cool sometimes. Those tend to be on the lower end of things, but they're really fun to work in to a collection. So one of the other things that game board collectors like is a lot of colors. The more colors, the better, is the traditional mantra, you might say. I don't think that's so important because I remember going to, as I was growing up in the business and learning, I remember going into dealers' booths and they go, "Oh, this is a 5-color board. Oh, look at 8 colors." Yeah, that's cool. You had to go to a little extra work for that. But if those colors didn't look good together, then what's the point? So you can have a 2-color board for sure that is just fantastically wonderful. And it's good to kind of have a mix of things. You know, you want different shapes, different sizes. Scale is important. A nice blend of things in terms of scale is really good when you're putting a collection together. And I wanted to bring a number of them here for you today so that you could see what to do with them if you were to collect them. And it's wonderful to take them and do some kind of artful presentation of them. You don't have to use all game boards on the wall. You can incorporate things like weather vanes or whirligigs, or in this case, I chose a great drum from the 19th century with an eagle on it from a cornet band, and up here is a barrel lid with a paper label on the front that kind of, fits in nicely. You can certainly blend them with paint decorated furniture like this Schoharie County, New York blanket chest. But you know, the point with game boards is, yeah, you can have one fabulous one just in one spot in a house and it will just sing on that particular wall. But it's also great to get a bunch of them together. And, you know, way more important than the number of colors is how those colors work together and how all the boards that you have translate together. Now, I just took all the ones that I had in inventory, or almost all of them, and figured out how to put them on a wall in an artful way. And a lot of times you can do that. But I've got some pointers for you for when you do it. Now, let me start by explaining that what you typically find in early paint decorated game boards is, number one, checkers or chess, same thing, right? Or if it's a Canadian board or Northern New England, you can see draughts, which looks just like chess or checkers. It's just got a lot more squares. And Parcheesi is sort of the next thing on the list. There's lots of Parcheesi boards, and they are loved in general because the layout is so graphic and you can do so much with it. And then there is backgammon, which is much more rare. I have 3 wonderful backgammon boards here today. Usually when you see backgammon, it's not so great, but when you have a great backgammon board, oh, they're wonderful, and they're great to put in the mix because they have all these pointy, you know, triangular spaces that I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but graphically they're so different than checkerboards and Parcheesi boards that they make for really a nice blend of things. And then you have game wheels, which are great to blend in any kind of situation like this because they're round, and most checkerboards and Parcheesi boards, there are some round ones, there is even some oval ones, and there's some kind of, up here in the corner I have kind of a rectangular checkerboard, but it's got curved sides, so you can see shapes that are not rectangular in non-game wheels, but game wheels add something fun, I think, to the mix because they're usually, not always, but usually round. And so it's nice to have a blend of things. So, as I said, there are homemade boards, and I'll show you one of these. Age is important. This is a particularly early board, dating, sometime between, say, 1820 and 1850, maybe. This has some really wonderful surface, and that is key in game board collecting, just like it is in any other type of Americana. Any type of paint decorated object that you buy should have wonderful surface. It doesn't have to be super dry and New England like. That's what the New England folks sort of gravitate towards. It can certainly be somewhat shiny and polychromatic, but if it does, it should have great crazing and or otherwise really have a surface that makes you want to look at it and makes you know that it's old. So there are various types of Parcheesi boards. Oops, put this on the wrong hook. And this is just one of the most wonderful that I've ever seen. And this is a good polychromatic painted one that I can bring in and sort of let you look at. And you can see how there's craquelure in the paint, alligatoring, if you will, or craquelure. This particular board has gilding on it, which is very unusual, and this repeating sort of buckle element here. And look, you know, there's some flora and fauna in the center and 2 cupids, probably made as a Valentine's Day. And instead of North south, east, and west, we have home, which is part of the Parcheesi game. And look, these great geometric sort of flowers, but geometrics in the corners. A whole bunch of colors, and they do work together in sort of an unusual fashion. This board is nearly a 10 out of 10. It's right up there with some of the best that I've ever seen. 1870s or 80s. Very finely done and not homemade. Almost certainly done by a carriage painter. Oop, I think we had this at an angle here. Now, I'll show you a couple of great backgammon boards. This is not a monstrously expensive one, nor a super duper fine one. There are a number of boards in the 19th century that are folding. This one I have so that it can't fold right at the moment. But if you look here again, polychromatic surface and great surface that you just can't replicate, and allows you to know that it's old. I love these flower-like medallions in the middle. Some of these folding boards turn into what look like books and go on a bookshelf. This particular one doesn't. But it's all wood and has great paint and is really quite wonderful. A wonderful blend of colors. I like the fact that it's just black and red and ochre white. Once again, it doesn't have to have a zillion colors to be great. Now here's a really killer board in backgammon. Look at how pointy the spaces are. Almost looks like teeth or icicles of some sort. Has a wonderful molded edge. They are often two-sided. Backgammon or Parcheesi will have chess and checkers on the reverse. Just a tremendous piece of artwork. This can easily be on a wall by itself and carry that wall as almost a piece of modern art. Well, I love antiques. I love the modernistic sensibility of game boards. And I love to see sort of modernistic features or elements in any sort of early paint decorated object. The other, this will be a hard one to get back on the wall here, but the other great backgammon board I have, and one of the best that I've ever seen, came out of northeastern Pennsylvania in a town called Milford, right on the New Jersey border. And this has some very nice, dry but very legitimate surface, a wagon wheel, and this wonderful Star of David type element with blue and white. Probably a Jewish maker, and the name on the side is Wise. Look, someone carved their name into it. Look, they separated the middle with this handmade, purposefully made piece of molding that's convex on either side with a raised center. And they made their own molding here, I'm sure, in this convex molding that goes around the interior. And they used instead on the other side, which is familiar, chess or checkers, has these great little decorations in the corners that look almost like spiders or snowflakes. Look at the wonderful curved molding here that is different than what's on the other side. And it's really thick, if you can't tell. So this is what a great form, great color, great elements to have on any sort of object. Love to see stars on just about anything American, of course. Let's see if I can get this back on the wall, and I'll show you a couple of game wheels. I don't know how much of the video we can waste doing that. This is a checkerboard that is a folding board, does not turn into a book. But look at the scroll work around the outside. Great surface. This is the kind of surface you really want to see. Nothing on the back of this particular board. And if you're going to have just a checkerboard, it should be fun in some way. You can get, by the way, just way too many checkers on a wall. You have to be careful of how you use checkers and chessboards on a wall, because too many checkers will just throw your eye and really doesn't work. So just be careful how many you buy. If you're going to start filling a wall, make sure you buy other things other than checkers, and try not to repeat colors too much. You want to tie them into one another, but they're better if they are their own element and make their own statement, in my opinion. I mean, whatever I tell you today, remember this, that these are just suggestions. Art is personal. You have to love it. Just because I say it doesn't mean that's the way that it has to be. You need to love it personally. And if you don't, it's not worth buying, because this isn't stuff we need. This is stuff we live with because we love. And if you don't love it, it's not worth owning. So whatever makes you enjoy your own wall at home by decorating it in whichever way that you like, that is what's going to bring reward to you. So these are just suggestions. This is a great little Parcheesi board I got not too long ago. It's sort of an odd color that's not quite brown and not quite, it's a sort of like a mustard and sort of an ochre. And just a fun, simple board with checkers on the reverse. Pretty good surface. Nice little bit of crazing. Nice polychromatic board. But one of the most wonderful horse wheels I've ever had is this one. And first, but I can pull this off of the wall. This board actually sits on top of another board and is intended to go on a tabletop. But it can be easily hung on the wall, and made circa late 1880s, 90s, 1910 at the latest, I would say. Look how this has not only killer surface that's really just a 10 out of 10, but these lead horses ridden by jockeys are all painted, and then all the numbering is hand painted on it. And it's got this great, look at that great sort of target in the middle, and it's got this wonderful brass fitting that goes over a post and allows you to put it right on the wall. 3 screws. And then I was gonna say, usually it goes on super easily. You just can screw this cap on, and you can actually spin it while it's on the wall, which is just a fun thing. And that is just one of the nicest types of boards, especially if you have horses, but certainly is great if you don't, that you can get to put in a collection like this. That's really a centerpiece. So is the Parcheesi. Now, I'll show you one more game wheel here. This interesting little board has a metal polychrome lithographed type surface. It's a painted surface, and there are dice and playing card elements, and this chrome spinner comes right off. It's meant to lay on a table, but there is a little hook there for putting it on the wall if you wish. And in the middle, you can see there. Unfortunately, you can't see this once the spinner is on, but there's this great little image of a horse head and a patent date. This is probably around, say, 1910 or so. Could be 1890, 1900, 1910. And definitely a fun thing to add to a game board collection. And it really works as it looks more like an 1890s thing, which allows you to put it with 19th century examples. So thanks for coming by today to tune in and have a look at some wonderful paint decorated American folk art. Visit my website at jeffbridgman.com. We always have a bunch of examples, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone and say, hey, what else do you have? So thanks for joining me.